How to be a great listener and deepen your relationships. Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, did they really hear me? Or maybe, did I truly hear them? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Like two people talking, but no real connection being made. At this stage in life, many of us crave more than just small talk. We long for depth, warmth, and understanding. But the truth is, deep relationships don't just happen. They're built, and one of the most powerful tools we have to build them is listening. Now I'm not talking about the kind of listening where we're just waiting for our turn to speak. I mean real, heart open, eye soft, I'm right here with you kind of listening. The kind that makes people feel safe, seen, and valued. And here's the beautiful part, you don't need to be the smartest, the loudest, or the fastest thinker in the room. You just need to be present. You see, as we get older, we often carry decades of wisdom, stories, and life lessons. But sometimes, the greatest gift we can give isn't a story or a solution, it's simply our attention. That's what this conversation is about today. We're going to explore how you can become a great listener, not just a better communicator, but someone who truly deepens the relationships that matter most. Let's begin by talking about presence. Not presence with a bow on top, but the kind of presence that fills a room without saying a word. Have you ever sat with someone who made you feel like you were the only person in the world at that moment? No glancing at their phone. No checking the clock. Just you, and them, and this shared space of attention. That kind of presence is magnetic. It tells the other person, you matter. I'm here. And it's something we can all practice, starting with something as simple as eye contact and setting down distractions. Being present means showing up with your whole self. Not just your ears, but your heart. When your grown daughter calls to vent about her day, don't jump in with advice. Just listen. Let her know you hear her. When your friend shares a memory from 50 years ago, even if you've heard it before, lean in. Smile. Nod. Ask a gentle question. Let them relive that moment with someone who cares. Now, let's talk about silence, the part of listening that people often overlook. Silence can be powerful. Healing, even. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they rush to fill it. But sometimes, that space, right after someone finishes speaking, that pause, is where the real emotion lives. Maybe they're holding back tears. Maybe they're searching for the right words. If we jump in too fast, we miss the magic that happens when someone realizes they're being heard, fully, deeply, and without interruption. I once had a neighbor, Mr. Harlan, he was in his late 80s. Quiet man. Didn't say much. But when he did, you listened. Why? Because he had this way of letting you speak without hurrying you. He never interrupted. Never rushed. And when he responded, it was like he had really taken in every word you said. People would walk away from conversations with him feeling lighter, not because he solved their problems, but because he made them feel important. That's what great listeners do. They give the gift of space. They're not waiting to reply, they're waiting to understand. Another key part of being a great listener is curiosity. Genuine, heartfelt curiosity. It's easy to fall into habits, nodding politely, asking the same old "how are you," and expecting the same old "I'm fine." But what if we got curious again? What if we asked, what's something that brought you joy this week, or what's on your heart today? These questions open doors to deeper conversations, the kind where real connection begins. Curiosity also means being willing to learn, even from people younger than us. Sometimes we're so used to being the ones who teach, who guide, who advise, that we forget to listen with the intent to grow. But every person you meet, no matter their age or background, knows something you don't. And when you approach conversations with curiosity rather than conclusion, you invite richness into your life. Let me tell you something I learned from my granddaughter. She's 12. We were having hot cocoa one afternoon, and I asked her, "What do you think makes someone a good friend?" She thought for a moment, looked at me, and said, "They remember what you said." That hit me. It's not the grand gestures. It's the small things, remembering someone's favorite song, or that they were nervous about their dentist appointment. These little bits of attention, they're like threads that quietly stitch relationships closer. So when you listen, try to remember the details. Repeat something back. You said your sister was coming to visit. How did that go? Or, you mentioned you were feeling anxious last week. How are you today? These small reflections show people that you didn't just hear them, you cared enough to hold on to what they said. And while we're here, let's not forget one of the most overlooked elements of great listening, empathy. That quiet whisper in your heart that says, I may not have been through this, but I can feel with you. Sometimes, the most healing words are not words at all, just a gentle hand on the shoulder, a knowing look, or even tears shared in silence. Empathy doesn't always mean agreeing. It means honoring someone's experience. You don't need to fix their pain. You don't need to relate with your own story. Sometimes, just saying, that sounds really hard, or I can hear how much that meant to you, is enough. Let's pause here. What we've begun to build together is not just a guide to better conversations, it's a pathway to deeper, more meaningful relationships. We've talked about presence, silence, curiosity, and empathy, and how these are more than just skills. They're choices we make in each moment, with each person, in each word, and in every pause. Shall we keep going? You know, one of the most beautiful things about being a great listener is that it creates a space where people feel like they can finally breathe. And in that space, trust begins to grow. You've probably noticed this yourself. When someone truly listens to you, your guard drops. You feel safe. You feel like you don't have to pretend. That's the kind of safety we all crave, no matter how old we are. And here's something worth remembering. Great listening isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. About showing up, even if you're tired, even if the person talking repeats themselves, even if you don't fully understand what they're going through. It's the effort, the posture of care, that counts more than any polished response. Let's talk about body language. It's often said that communication is mostly nonverbal, and it's true. You can say all the right words, but if your body is turned away, your arms are crossed, your eyes keep drifting to the window, well, the message isn't really getting through. On the other hand, a gentle nod, leaning in just a little, a soft here and there, those are signs that say, I'm with you. It doesn't take much. Sometimes, a look of genuine interest is more powerful than a whole paragraph of advice. There's something else, too, something I've learned from decades of family dinners, porch chats, and phone calls that went too long but felt too short. And that is, listening well means putting your ego aside. It means letting go of the need to be right, or the need to be the center of attention. It's realizing that the goal of a conversation isn't to win, it's to connect. Sometimes, in the middle of someone sharing something emotional, we're tempted to jump in with our own story. Oh, that reminds me of the time or yeah, I know exactly what you mean, one time we mean well, of course. We're trying to relate. But often, those interruptions shift the spotlight away from the person who just needed to be heard a little longer. A good question to ask yourself in the moment is, am I listening to understand, or listening to respond? That tiny pause, that bit of self-awareness, can change the whole tone of the conversation. Because when we listen to understand, we slow down. We stay curious. We hold space for the other person's experience to unfold without rushing it. I remember a moment with my oldest friend, Carol. We've known each other since we were both in our 20s, now we're both proudly wearing our grays. A few years ago, after her husband passed away, she came over and sat in my kitchen. She didn't say much. Just stared out the window for a while. I offered coffee. She nodded. Then, in a whisper, she said, "It's strange not hearing his footsteps." I didn't know what to say. Every sentence I thought of felt too small, too neat for something so raw. So I didn't say much. I just reached over, touched her hand, and stayed with her in the silence. She later told me that was one of the most comforting moments in the weeks after his passing. Not because of anything I said, but because I stayed. I listened with my presence, not my words. That taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes being a great listener means allowing someone else to grieve, or celebrate, or wonder, without needing to fill the space with your own thoughts. It also means practicing patience. Some people take time to open up. Others struggle to find the right words. Especially with age, memory might fade, or speech might slow down. But that doesn't mean what they're saying isn't valuable. It just means we have to lean in a little further, wait a little longer, and remind ourselves that everyone deserves to be heard, even if it takes them a few extra moments to say what's on their heart. And patience is not just for others. It's for ourselves, too. Maybe you've had moments when you look back on a conversation and think, I should have said this differently, or I wish I hadn't interrupted. That's okay. We're human. Listening, real, intentional, soul-level listening, is a skill. And like any skill, it grows with practice. So be gentle with yourself. Every time you try, every time you pause before replying, every time you really tune in, you're getting better. One of the most beautiful gifts we can offer the people in our lives, our partners, our children, our neighbors, even strangers, is the feeling of being truly heard. When people feel heard, they open up. They share more. They soften. And in that space, real relationships grow. Sometimes, the difference between a shallow relationship and a deep one is just one good listener. So the next time you sit across from someone, at the kitchen table, on a bench in the park, or even over the phone, ask yourself, how can I make this person feel heard right now? Maybe it's by saying less. Maybe it's by asking more. Maybe it's by just being there, fully present, in that sacred, ordinary moment of connection. Because deep down, we all want the same thing, to feel like we matter to someone. The more we listen with intention, the more we begin to notice how deeply people long to be understood. It's something you can feel, not just in what they say, but in how they say it. Sometimes, it's hidden in the sigh between their sentences, or in the way their voice softens when they speak about something that matters to them. Great listening picks up on those little things. It hears what isn't said out loud. It feels what the heart is trying to express, even when the words don't quite come out right. One of the greatest joys of aging is that we become more aware of what truly matters, and relationships always make the list. At this point in life, we don't need 1,000 friends. We just need a few real ones. People we can laugh with, cry with, sit in silence with. People who see us and let us see them. And every strong relationship, every truly meaningful one, is built on this foundation, the simple, sacred act of listening. But being a great listener doesn't mean you lose yourself in the process. It doesn't mean you absorb everyone else's emotions or carry burdens that aren't yours. In fact, one of the most loving things you can do for someone is to hold space without trying to fix them. You're not their therapist. You're their friend, their partner, their parent, their sibling. Your presence is powerful enough. If you've ever held someone's story, truly held it, with no judgment or agenda, you know what I mean. And if you've ever had someone hold yours, you'll understand just how healing that can be. Sometimes, we don't need answers. We just need a place to speak. A heart to lean on. An ear that listens and a soul that doesn't try to rush us through our pain or our joy. That's what listening really is. It's not about words. It's about care. And when we care enough to listen well, something incredible begins to happen, not just in our relationships, but in ourselves. We become softer, wiser, more grounded. We begin to see people with more compassion, and we also begin to understand ourselves a little better. Because in hearing others, we often hear echoes of our own hopes, fears, regrets, and dreams. Conversations become mirrors. And through them, we grow. Now, I know some people feel like it's too late to change, that we're too old to improve how we connect. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Every day we wake up is another chance to show up differently. To be more present. To listen better. To love more fully. So the next time you're with someone you care about, try this: pause before speaking. Look into their eyes. Let go of the urge to fix, to judge, or to steer the conversation. Just listen. Be with them in their story. And when you do speak, let your words come from that place of quiet understanding, not the need to be heard, but the desire to honor what was shared. And when you listen like that, really listen, something almost magical happens. The relationship shifts. It deepens. Walls come down. Trust builds. Even long-held misunderstandings can begin to heal. And what you're left with is something rare and beautiful, connection. That's what we all want, in the end. Not to be impressive. Not to be right. But to be connected. So today, I want to leave you with this thought. You don't need to be a brilliant speaker to change someone's life. You just need to be a present listener. One kind ear. One open heart. One moment of full attention can leave an imprint that lasts a lifetime. If you've ever felt lonely, overlooked, or unheard, you know how painful that can be. But the beautiful truth is, you have the power to make sure someone else never feels that way around you. You can be the one who listens without rushing, who hears without judging, who offers safety with nothing more than silence and love. And in doing so, you just might find that the relationships in your life become more meaningful, more honest, and more nourishing than ever before. So here's to you, for being someone who listens. For being someone who shows up with compassion and presence. For choosing connection over control, understanding over opinion, and love over ego. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe share a moment when someone really listened to you, or a time when you offered your ears and your heart to someone who needed it. Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel for more gentle wisdom, just like this. Because you're never too old to grow, never too late to connect, and never too far from love when you listen with care. Here's to deepening your relationships, one beautiful conversation at a time.